DPW, Public Works, Park, Rec, and Railroad Committee to order. First thing I'd like to do is welcome the new supervisors on the board. We have Mr. Wild, Mr. McGowan, and we have a recurring supervisor, Mr. Lowe. And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
some of the existing supervisors, well, I don't know about Dennis. I'm only kidding. Welcome all of you. I'm looking forward to a good 2018 with our work on the committee. So with that, we need approval of the minutes of the prior committee meeting. Moved by Supervisor Frazier, seconded by Supervisor Dickinson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried. Okay, I'll turn this over to Mr. Benway.
First up, we have from Saratoga North Creek Railway, Joseph Gagnon.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
So I'll start off with the same issues that I think a lot of us are dealing with right now, is the ice from the river. We did send out a press release, and I notified Jeff and Tim earlier this month. We have ice over the tracks at milepost 74.5, which is just south of the Glen Hudson campground. And we had ice around a bridge at milepost 71.1, which is about 3 miles north of Stony Creek Ranch. The ice on that bridge was up to the bottom of the bridge and up against the east side of the bridge. We were working with Jeff and Warren County engineers. Thankfully, the water has receded now, and no damage to that bridge. The approaches are fine, the decks are fine, and the bridge structure is fine, and the bearings are fine. So, dodged a bullet there. As of yesterday, we still have ice and water over the tracks at 74.5. We're waiting to see what today brings, whether the rain is going to help break the ice up so that the river can recede a little further. Rule of thumb in railroading, if the water's over the top of the rail, you don't run over it. So we still have that condition, so until that changes, we won't be operating any trains through that area. Assuming everything remains fine with the bridge at 71.1, we are looking at resuming the snow train schedule on February 3rd, but it will be a more abbreviated run. The train, since we can't go past milepost 74, the train would only go to Thurman, in fact. So we would operate between Saratoga and Thurman, but given the increase in ridership that we have seen, we're seeing the best ridership we've seen in a long time on the snow train this year, and it's because of the new price structure and with the new the decreased layover in North Creek. People are buying tickets, so it's actually very unfortunate. The first weekend that we had to cancel, we had 82 passengers, and then the last 2 weekends, the 20th and the 27th, between those 2 weekends, we had over 150 passengers that we had to reschedule or refund. So obviously we want to get the trains back up and running as soon as possible, but thank you to Jeff, Kevin Hajos, and Tim for working with us on the ice issues. Saratoga Station, we have moved out of there. You probably saw the article in the newspaper. I was planning on reporting on it today, but people do it. So, the reason why we moved out of the station, we have, just a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago, we had a coffee shop in Saratoga Station, we had a gift shop, and we had a ticket office. And what we were seeing, that the sales for the ticket office were next to nothing. The coffee shop was very underutilized, and basically we were holding on to that space for Polar Express. On average, our passengers spend maybe 15 minutes in Saratoga Station prior to boarding the train. This summer, we had the station open, but we handled ticketing on board the train. And of course, this winter we didn't operate Polar Express. We operated Train to Christmastown out of Stony Creek. So we were paying quite a bit of money each month for not a whole lot of use. We are going to, as I said in the newspaper, we are going to maintain our relationship with CDTA. They've been an excellent business partner over the last few years. over the last 7 years, not the last few years. But for right now, it doesn't make sense, given the current finances, to hold on to something that isn't really needed. It's not part of the contract, and we can still utilize the tracks at the station because those are contracted with Canadian Pacific Railway and not CDTA. So if you're wondering how this changes our operations, if you're a passenger coming to board our train, you're not going to see much of a difference. You'll be able to walk through Saratoga Station, you'll go out onto the platform, and you'll show your reservation to the conductor instead of a ticket agent. So that's where we're at with that. The spring and summer schedule is set with the new pricing structure. We should be putting out a press release probably early next month that will show our schedule and the new pricing structure. It's the same as what we've done in the past, weekends, May and June, and then we'll open up through the weekend after the 4th of July. That's really all I have.
Claudia?
Could we please have an update on the Stanford Lake line?
With regards to what?
The cars that were moved into that area.
Okay. The cars were billed out by UTLX. With the current status of the tracks, the main line is out of service. So until we can clean up the ice issue at 74.3, the cars are going to remain where they are. There's no benefit to moving them anywhere else on the line. The only other spots that we could theoretically bring them would bring them onto Warren County's tracks. Right now, where they are is the best place for them. But we are in communications with UTLX, and as soon as we can, we will be moving those cars out of here.
Go ahead.
You talked about resuming service in May, June. What is your plan for those services? Is it going to be all the way to North Creek?
Yeah, it would be the same as what we've done in previous years, the round trip between Saratoga and North Creek.
Okay, is there any questions from the committee?
I've been trying to communicate with Mr. Ellis. I've been unsuccessful. Maybe you could relay a message, that if he could answer my emails, phone calls, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, I can do that.
Thanks.
Excuse me. Okay, if there's nothing further, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, I have New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Snowmobile Unit is approved for the 2017-18 season, $66,975 to each of our clubs. With the total of both state and county funding, we are at $156,975. Attached page 2, or actually, I'm sorry, page 3, is a graph of the history of the years, the amounts that have been given. It's based, basically New York State does on the prior year snowmobile registration for the previous year, allows funding, and then they match the funds through a phase 3, they call it, online system. They proof out that they've used the money appropriately, and then they release 30% at the end, usually around March. I'd like to tell everybody that we are working on an open house again in February 21st, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We're calling it the Winter Rendezvous. We are going to have, up yonder there, we'll be doing snowshoeing. We're going to participate with the life cycle of trout. At that point of our hatchery, we are fully loaded from egg stage all the way up to prior stocking stage. So we have 1-year-olds all the way down to egg. We have a gentleman that's coming from, we believe, Crossroads. It's going to be inside doing fly tying, and hopefully it's good weather, not too cold, but depending on what we have for weather. So that's once again February 21st, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And that's the week that the kids are off. That's why we're doing it that week. It's a perfect opportunity to see the the hatchery. That's when we're fully loaded from every aspect, from birds until sockets. So anybody wishes to come, we'd like to see you. Next, we have I have Jeff Tennyson. We're going to go over the RFP for the county fairgrounds for glamping.
If I could just hit on the open house at the hatchery. That's going to be in addition to the spring zing that we're doing in early May. That one is more focused on getting parents and kids interested in angling. So we do a lot more there, kids activities and things. Unfortunately, by the time we have that in May, we've already stocked out a lot of fish, so we have a lot of empty ponds. So that's still going to occur. I think you remember the date?
May 12th.
May 12th.
Saturday.
Okay, at the end of last year, we had discussed in committee the 2017 glamping business that was active at the fairgrounds, and it was with Adirondack Safari last year, and they desired to do a longer term contract. So we determined that legally we'd need to do an RFP. So that's what we're developing now. In talking with Chairman Simpson and Tim Benway, the few items we just want to get some guidance from the committee. We think we can get the RFP out pretty quickly, but just a few things that we want to talk about here and get some consensus. Let's see. Make this big. So here's an aerial photo of the fairgrounds, and it's oriented north-south now. So the areas that are shaded a little bit are some of the areas of concern, and what we want to do is put the RFP out and identify the key areas that there are other events that occur. This area up on the northern end is the area that Cornell uses for an event that's held in, when is that held? In August.
Yep.
And in order for them to use that area, there's several buildings in here. We will need any company we contract with to vacate those areas for a few days. Like, how many days?
It'd be 4 for them.
Okay. And then the other big event that occurs in at the fairgrounds is, what's that one?
May 30th, the Warrensburg
Bike Rally.
30th through the 11th.
So what the RFP will do is basically allow a new contractor to come in directly after the bike rally. The bike rally uses the entire site, and it would be available till end of September was what we did with Adirondack Safari, was end of September. We really don't have any events after that, heading into winter. This area down here is just a septic system where they really can't stage or put anything in. But one of the discussions was public use of the park. And in utilizing the park last year for the glamping business, they really occupied the entire facility. So we did have some requests for use of a pavilion. The shading's a little dark here, but there's a large pavilion down here that is used for anything like family reunions or wedding receptions have been held there, all sorts of events. And so one of the concepts that we were bouncing around was having that area available for public use still and not allowing the glamping or other business to use that area. But that's really up to the committee how we want to do it. We could offer the entire site exclusively, or we could still maintain some public use on the site. Any questions on any of that, or?
We have a pavilion like yours. Things full all the time. Actually, we have 2 of them. I think it's nice to have things like that available for the public. I don't know what he's doing with the glamping. How's he use all that space?
Well, do we have an aerial of that? I might have one in file, but basically they had these round, almost teepee-looking tents that were scattered all over the site. So he spaced them out quite a bit so that people had some privacy and had their own camping areas.
So are they actually staying there?
Yes. Yeah, that's what Adirondack Safari did last year. So they were charging by the night, like a hotel room basically, and people would come and stay right on site. They were basically parking over here, so all the personal vehicles were over on this side, but they had these luxury tents with beds and everything else in order.
Pretty much all
Are they called
inclusive.
utes?
No,
No,
those
these-
weren't.
You're thinking yurt, but
Yurt.
no, that's
No.
not. That's not. They kind of look like that, like a yurt, but that's not. They're strictly tents.
It's pretty much all inclusive. You have the grills set up. People just can drive there. You don't need to bring any camping equipment.
So we don't know who will propose on this year. It could be Adirondack Safari, and there are other glamping companies that exist. I know, I believe there's one or two up in Johnsburg, and there may be other pop-ups that want to do it as well. So we're not dictating a layout. We have basic terms that we want to include. Our thought is on the RFP is to identify the areas that are available for exclusive use, identify the areas that other events need, for instance, like the Cornell event, and make that available in all other times, but during these dates they have to vacate those buildings. And then also, like I said, the potential public use area. And then what we'd be doing is getting this RFP out, offering it for glamping or other similar activities on the site. And we have a contract that we developed for Adirondack Safari this past year that had all the key terms in it as far as maintenance and the do's and don'ts of how they use the site. So our thought would be to basically redact this and remove specifics, but include it as an attachment in the RFP of, hey, here's a sample contract of what the county would expect of the winning proposal. And then once we receive proposals, we'd be back to committee, for review.
Supervisor Loeb?
Chairman, what was, Adirondack Safari had a better marketing name. Glamping is a pretty crappy name as far as I'm trying to sell it, but like luxury camping or something? I thought it was much more descriptive and
Something like that.
satisfying to think about.
I was just going to say, I guess Dennis must have missed the little presentation that they had at the end of the year where he kind of had a slideshow to show what went on there, and that to me should kind of be what everybody sees if you're trying to make a decision whether you think it's a good idea or not a good idea, because I was impressed with the activities that went on over there that were all involved with that, and it kind of would be nice if everybody had a chance to see that.
Supervisor Wild?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Jeff, I was just curious, what kind of learnings did we get from last year, from our experience for the first year of doing this? And are there any changes that we need to incorporate into the contract, the future contract and RFP going forward, because there was damage, or there was this, or
Yes.
there was whatever?
Yeah, there was a few items that we'll certainly incorporate and track, I guess, more diligently. One of the biggest ones was APA contacted the county and said, hey, you can't run a campground without an APA permit. So in the contract, the vendor will be responsible for all necessary permits. I think there was an effort to get a temporary permit in place through the county attorney's office for last year, so we were okay with the APA last year. But we'll be working with Mary and her office on developing language in the contract that puts that on the vendor. There was damage at the end of the year where they did not vacate the property per the contract. They kind of bled over, and I think part of that was they had tenants in some of the tents right up to the final day of the contract. So what we're proposing in this one is to have the buffer, okay, so you have to cease operations as of this date, and then you have to be repaired and vacated as of this date, just so it's clear in the contract that, no, you can't operate right to the last minute. And then one of the biggest impacts they had, and it's probably going to be an impact in the spring that we're going to have to address, is in each location where they had these tents, they were probably 20-foot diameter tents. And they were permanently staged. They were installed and left there all summer, so they killed all the grass. And because it went so late and they took so long to do the repairs and to vacate all the equipment, They ended up paying Soil and Water to come in and hydro seed, and it was probably late October by the time it did it, so I'm sure none of that hydro seed is going to take, and it'll have to be repaired again in the spring. There was a few other, activities of the vendor that we had to, Tim and his staff had to go out and say, no, you can't do that. So we'll just be clarifying, a few items in the contract. Overall, it brought in, was about $22,000 in revenue. We did have to change our insurance. So I think there was an insurance cost to the county of about $1,800. Is that something right?
Mm-hmm.
That was unanticipated initially. So we can include that language, or just plan on it for this year to have that expense and taken out of the revenue.
So just to follow up from a financial standpoint, we made $28,000 last year or so. What is your expectation this year? Should it be 2 times that, 3 times that, because of how successful they were last year?
Well, I think
It's open market, right, basically?
at least the one vendor we worked with wanted to extend the contract under similar terms. He just wanted a longer period in order to recoup some of his capital outlay of buying the tents and the setup. So I would anticipate it would be something in the similar range, if we do a longer term. Now, we do have other similar lease agreements that are 5-year agreements. So there is precedence for that. For instance, the railroad lease is a 5-year, renewable for 5 years. So I think that's another decision we need from the committee, is what is the desired term, or do we want to give a range and then leave it up to the vendor to propose a term? We could even in the RFP say, we'll accept proposals between 1 to 5 years, and then negotiate directly. And if it's something that the committee wants to try for a year but doesn't want to do a long-term contract, that would be an option as well.
Supervisor Loeb?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. The county makes $20-something thousand. This has to have a nice impact on your local economy in Warrensburg. Supervisor Garrett?
Yeah. I have a few concerns I want to discuss before we get too much.
Thank you.
My turn?
Yes.
I think we need to, whoever gets the property, we need to define the areas, and we need to hold them to these areas. I think there's too much ambiguity in, I can be here, I can't be here. I think whoever we deal with needs to understand those certain periods of time, they're off limits, and we're not going to negotiate with you. I mean, we're not going to go up there and be chasing you off an area that's off limit. That's number one. Number two, the county may want to consider hooking onto the sewer line that runs by this facility, so they don't have to use a septic system anymore for their bathrooms. That's something, to me, it would make sense. If you're going to put more events there, it would make sense to be hooked onto the town sewer, and I could use the revenue. That's one thing. And the other thing is on the pavilion. How many times was there an ask for that pavilion? Because I've never seen a lot of people at that pavilion up there.
This year,
Did you have a few?
Yeah, 6 to 8, I would say.
Because I know our pavilions in town is just like Dennis. Every pavilion you have is booked solid. And actually, we've already taken reservations for
Correct.
recreation field and some of the other.
This is an overflow for the hatchery.
Okay, that's
Offer it
fine.
to them.
Which is, I have no problem if you cut it off. But anytime you have dual purposes on that field, you run into issues. I think that's an issue we ran into this year. We need, and Parks and Recs needs to be the policeman up there. And you need to define that, whoever gets the contract, and you make sure, and there's no give or take. If they're not supposed to be in an area, don't let them in an area. And the other thing is, Jeff, I'm concerned about how long it's going to take to get this RFP out, because I know this gentleman leases all this equipment, and they need to lease the equipment fairly soon. That was one of the issues last year when we had the delays, because they go out and they lease all this equipment. I mean, they lease grills, tents, and all that stuff, I believe. So I wouldn't drag my heels on getting this RFP ready to be put out, hopefully by February, where we can get it out to the vendors, because if they have to go out and lease and try to get the price to get all this equipment there, it is good revenue for the county. And I know this gentleman did, you know, obviously he's coming back, would like the long-term commitment from the county, but I'm okay with doing it the way we're doing it. But I just think if it's county property, you're the policeman, let's make sure that whoever gets the property understands, so we don't run into these conflicts we had. We run into, they're small conflicts, but still, conflicts are aggravating and they take everybody's time to rectify them. So those are some of the things I can offer. And then I would say that hooking to the town septic line would make sense, but that's something that...
Hold on, Brad. Go ahead, Brad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff, what is the maintenance of that septic field? I mean, is there a set schedule for pumping, and what, you know, do we do? What do you think the cost of maintaining that on a yearly type basis?
One of the things we did in this contract was require the vendor to pump at the end of the term. So they did pump. Do we pump every year?
Well, in the past we haven't. We were required to do it every third year. But, you know, with the maximum use this year, with calculations, it was about $2,100. They paid 2/3, we paid 1/3.
Because, you know, that's the key thing, keeping really a healthy septic field, and also by connecting up, you know, you just go to the tank to right out to the road, I imagine, right?
It's going to go by on the other side.
Not installed yet.
Oh, it's not installed yet?
No, that's why
all right.
the opportunity is there to do it.
At the particular, because that would, you know, gain some more space. No, because I know we've had a few of these that have come to the Queensbury Planning Board, you know, there's more of this glamping type thing, and little smaller pockets around Queensbury. People want to do it on the property. It seems to be quite popular. And you know, all for the benefit of the county. I think it's a great idea. The field mainly sits most of the time, but if we can coordinate off and have it wording in the contract for the public use on the pavilion, and policing, and really for the cost of insurance in the contract, I feel that should be the responsibility of whoever gets the contract. You know, it doesn't come out of the county, so we can benefit the most out of, you know, get the most revenue as we can for the county.
Gene?
Well, the only comment I'll make is the RFP part. We ran into a little problem with tourism and hot tax. We're waiting too long to put these RFPs out. I mean, this is pushing the end of January, but we have to do it, and I understand it. But what I would like to suggest, whether it's going to be a headache, why don't we go to the APA right now and get the permit for Warren County to have camping on here? This way, if you got to tell these people, by the time they come here to submit a proposal, could be March, and then they're going to have to go to the APA, and that could be another month or two. We could run into problems. So if it's not against our regulations, why don't the county just get a permit from the APA to allow camping on that piece of property? So I'm just throwing that out because
I think we could look into that. I mean, I think one of the issues the APA is going to want to know details of how many units, how many days. You're going to want to know all the details of the proposed use.
Just put them out there, have them available.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a problem. Say you're going to have 50 tents out there. We are. We might only have 25. But my point is, I've learned a lot in the last couple of months about RFPs and getting things done and coming back months later. We got to do these kind of things a little bit earlier.
Would we apply? Can we apply for the?
No,
we can't.
Oh, we can't.
No.
Oh, so why'd you let me talk? You should have stopped.
I tried to quiet you down there, Supervisor.
Good idea.
Actually, Supervisor Wild first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff, do they have full-time staff?
Yes.
All right, so what my suggestion would be is, and we allude to it in the RFP, that we have some teeth in the contract for some penalties for using the areas that they're not supposed to, and any kind of other violations. Put some kind of teeth in the contract.
Yeah, I
Right,
guess
so-
I'd be open to recommendations on what type of penalties. Would they be monetary penalties? or would they
You know,
be-
monetary, or take a tent down, or do whatever, right? Make it stick.
I'm open to suggestions, but it is a difficult thing because really, in most of these, our option is to terminate and say, you got 30 days to leave. That is always
It's
our
not the
option.
best
but-
interest of everyone, right?
Right.
So what we want to do is have some kind of escalating clauses in there, but we can refer to the county attorney, but I'd love to see something, because it costs us money to go out there and deal with these issues.
Maybe one of the things we could do is require a deposit that would be used for damage or unauthorized use, and then have a chargeback where, okay, you just lost $100 off your deposit.
Well, can I just chime in there? I think the unauthorized use, Mike, is more getting them understand when Cornell uses it for their youth fair. That space is Cornell's, and we're not going to argue about it. I think last year we had a difficulty getting them to move. I even went up there and said, hey, move your stuff. So I think that's the issue. I think if we're clear, and I agree, put a penalty in there, but we still want to get them to move, because youth fair goes in there for 3 or 4 days to set up and use it. And we can't just sit there and say, we're going to fine you and you're going to leave your stuff there. That's not the case. You just can't get in there unless we cordon off more of the area that they can't use, which I think would impact them, because they do use that one pavilion, correct, and stage. So that was the issue on that, was making sure that they understood that Cornell, I don't think it was, if it was made clear to them, they didn't act like it was made clear to them. We made it very clear to them. So I think going forward, when we meet with these people, anybody who gets the award, they understand. We're not going to have them move out of a restricted area on those days. They need to move. Yeah.
Supervisor Hogan?
I apologize if this is ground already covered, but as public parkland has the alienation issue then? Okay, thank you.
Chairman Conover?
Yeah, my recommendation is that you ask Department of Public Works to come back with a budget on capitalizing on the opportunity of the new sewer main coming through this area, and that the committee resolve that that we connect to the public sewer as an opportunity to look at the proximity of the river, look at the level of use, and check systems, find some fails. Know when it fails, what do you do then? How do you support the program then? So I would recommend that we get some numbers and in fact, the lateral could be run in anticipation of the line coming in. I mean, we could convert at the appropriate point in time, but the opportunity of putting it in the spring, I wouldn't lose that opportunity as soon as the ground thaws. I would hope that we could move forward with our own crews by contract to put that in and get on the public sewer. I just think it's the prudent thing to do at this stage, unless I'm totally underestimating the cost of running that lateral. I don't believe I am. So that would be my recommendation for these days. There would be some kind of determination subject to the final budget that we get link out to that project.
Thank you. Anything further? Jeff?
Yeah, I guess, just to address some of the comments, my intent is to clearly define. So I have the map here, and if the committee's good with this as we have it, then that's what will be in the RFP. And then, I think we've talked about some of the terms. I'll work on some language with the county attorney's office, maybe on a required deposit with some penalties. Maybe that'll give us a little bit of teeth so that we don't have that issue. And then, as far as the septic system goes, we did reverse engineer that. That was installed back in probably the late 80s or 90s. Is that when that building was, when the bathrooms were put in? About 2000? Okay, so we reverse engineered that to determine what the capacity was, and the thing was sized for the fairground, for the Warren County Fair that used to be held there with thousands of people. So really the system is huge, and the limited number of personnel that came in with the luxury camping was a minor thing. So I don't want anybody to believe that there's a problem with the septic system now. Basically, they brought in a shower trailer. At least their prior vendor brought in a shower trailer and placed that next to it and then tapped into it, and it could not only handle the additional load in the bathroom, but also the additional shower trailer with excess capacity. As far as turning this around quickly, we'll be able to take this contract and the comments out of here, and as soon as we can actually get it advertised, we'll be out on the street. So I would anticipate it would be out.
So we'll have it back by February, for the February committee?
Back with proposals?
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to give a few weeks for proposals. So I would
Right.
say what we could do is have a special committee meeting.
I would have a special committee
In early
meeting
March.
as soon as you can to get these vendors in so they can get their, because you may do better if you,
What we'll do is, we'll proceed as quickly as possible and work with the county attorney's office and with our purchasing agent to get this on the street quickly, and then keep the committee informed via email.
Okay, Supervisor Loeb?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just quick, whenever we talk about an RFP, is this something that purchasing has to do?
yeah, they're, yes.
Another priority we're putting on them, okay? They do have an empty seat in purchasing that they're coming to the support committee for. They want to advertise, get that chair filled. We're loading them up for work, so I'm good. We'll be hopefully proving that on Friday. I don't know what the next step is as far as hiring people, but it looks like we're in need of them to be able to maximize
Right, but I think
their
the more
capacity.
information that we can get to them makes their job a little bit easier, other than putting it in a format that's approved by the county.
Chairman
I was
Conover?
serious, and I have to say that chair is full of paperwork. They do have a pile going on up there. I was up there yesterday, sorry.
Chairman Conover?
Again, Leachfield's fine when you don't have the opportunity to connect the public system, but if the opportunity presents itself to connect to the public system, I highly recommend that we do that. I think those are dollars well spent. And I only need to point out the proximity of the river and types of associated groundwater issues. So, the opportunity, and the other thing about the main line coming through is that there may be things that adjustments that could be made on the main line to better receive.
Yeah, we
the
need to
lateral.
know now.
And determinations can be made, adjustments on manholes, things that can be done up front to save money down the road. So I would strongly recommend that we at least look at a budget for connecting to the public system. Septic systems there, it doesn't, there's an issue with the public system goes forward, but I would abandon the system as being nice stuff.
Supervisor Wild? Did you still have?
I did, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor McGowan?
Yes, I just wanted to say to Supervisor Conover that I highly agree with his recommendation after all the years I've had in the construction fields, and with the proximity of the river and everything else, in being forward with the, manholes that would really, I think the county would benefit from it.
Thank you. Okay, if we're ready to move on. Supervisor Thomas?
Yeah, on a different subject, are we ever going to get the neighbors to move off our property there? On the end there?
That had, let's see. I don't know if that was an open session that we talked about the particulars on that, or if that would be...
She may not have.
So,
It may have been with Brian. Do you want to,
Experience of moving things, right?
you want to go into executive to discuss it? Could lead to litigation?
could be,
Yeah, potentially.
okay, Brad?
Are we leasing this property now to the squatters?
We need to go into executive session, discuss potential litigation.
Anything is potential litigation. This, it does not seem to really meet the definition
It's up to the committee. Does the committee want to
Break the law?
break the law?
Yeah.
I don't think we're breaking the law. What's the feeling of the committee? Do you want to discuss it? And
It was brought up in open session.
Was it?
I don't have a problem talking about it.
do we have a motion? Do we have a motion on the table?
No.
No, we didn't.
But Jeff, has there been any progress since the last time we talked about this?
I think it'd be
Clearly
better to
not.
hear from the mayor's office.
I don't know anything about it, so.
Then I don't think we
That's
need to
the
go into
discussion.
executive session.
No.
Okay, so then we'll
I
just...
would rather have the Jeff and Mary figure out where we are and come back and report back to us.
Okay.
If we feel the need at that point to go into executive session, we'll go into executive session.
Okay, if that's agreeable to the committee, we'll move on.
Next. What's next?
Okay, next.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chairman. If we could get into solid waste, which is the thinner of the other packets. The only action item I have is to amend 3 resolutions. These 3 resolutions, number 489, 490, and 491, were passed last year with the intent of awarding solid waste contracts, various contracts, and also with the intent of extending those contracts to the towns. Unfortunately, the language in the resolution didn't include authorizing the IMAs to enter municipal agreements. So this request on page 1 is simply to amend those resolutions and add a new resolve that will allow IMAs with the towns in a form approved by the county attorney.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, moved by Supervisor Dickinson, seconded by Supervisor McGowan. Discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it was shared services that we talked about, the recycling aspect. I'm wondering, and there were a lot of questions as to the approved vendor requiring additional expenses by the towns. So in the end, the net cost to the county as a whole looked like it was going to be more than we were paying with Evolution. I'm wondering how, and there was going to be some further discussion with this new approved vendor. Where do we stand with that with regard to approving these contracts, and how would that discussion be impacted if we approved it?
Should we speak to that? Because I think we've awarded them, right?
Yeah, so the bid was awarded. Purchasing is discussing the particulars of the bid with the company to see if they will give on any of their requirements. Approving this amendment wouldn't do anything to those negotiations because this is just allowing our office to draft intermunicipal agreements with the towns. So if the bid was terminated and they had to go back out for an RFP, we would redo the entire resolution anyway because we would be awarding the bid to someone else. So we would just include the intermunicipal agreements in that resolution as well. So this has no impact on the negotiations.
But the 2 resolutions are for MSW solid waste, and then only the 1 resolution is for the electronics. So 2 of them are solid waste that we're doing anyways, and then 1 would be the electronics.
Okay. Jeff?
I
Maybe
did talk
Jeff was-
to...
Were you aware of that, the issues with the electronics?
I talked with Julie Butler this morning. She was intending on coming to the committee and then had a conflict with a family matter, so she couldn't make it. So we'll get her on the agenda for next month, certainly, and have another issue of solid waste to give an update.
Okay, if we're all ready, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Okay, that's all I have for solid waste. If we want to move on to DPW.
Okay.
The last agenda. On page 1 is the first request. This is a request to establish road projects. These are projects that were presented to committee end of last summer. And what we do in the budget process is basically account for a total dollar amount, and then after the budget's approved and we get into the following year and before we're into construction season, we actually establish the project. So these are the projects that were discussed in committee last year, and so this just puts them in a pot of money that we can actually draw from.
Okay, would somebody like to move that? Supervisor Loeb, seconded by Supervisor Frazier. Discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as an update for me based on where we were 4 years ago, as far as your annual plan for road repair versus the actual need. There was a plan at that time to fix the roads, I guess, that were the highest priority need, and you thought that based on the financials you could keep ahead of the curve, but you weren't quite sure if we would be able to, that we actually needed more money. Where do we stand now with our ability to keep ahead and actually make our roads the way you would like them to be?
I do a similar report each summer, so I'll make sure that the new committee members get that report. It might be posted on the county website page, but I'll post it, the one from last year, and get you a copy. That'll give you a perspective over the last few years on how things have improved and where we stand now. In recent years, we have had additional county dollars into our road projects. So I think when you were on the board before, we were basically trying to use CHIPS only, which is the state funding. And we've had some improvements on the state funding side with some additional programs. One is called Pave New York. Another one that we had not this past year, but the year before, for 2 years, was Extreme Weather Recovery. So those were additional funds that were available to us. And then, through the budget process and the budget officer's recommendations have been, we've had around $600,000 a year, in recent years in county funds. So we have been making improvements. So I'll make sure to get you the updated report on that.
Just for further clarification, I recall that there were towns who were saying, geez, we're doing this road. I remember one discussion where one supervisor was saying, do we need to do this road? And the other supervisor was saying, I've been waiting years to get my road done. It's in terrible shape. Your opinion, have we passed that so that now that the towns are saying, things are looking pretty good? Or are we still saying, it's pretty miserable?
So I think what we've tried to do in recent years is balance the amount of good, fair, and poor roads in the town. So in our analysis, there were certain towns that had a higher percentage of poor roads. Those were Johnsburg, Stony Creek, and Thurman. And so we have had more projects in those towns in recent years to balance the percentage of poor county roads. So they've seen greater improvement in those towns. And we've tried to maintain in the other towns as well. It's not that we haven't been doing projects, we've just been doing fewer. And I think we're pretty equal across the county now, where there's an equal percentage of those categories. It's improved, and you'll see that in the report. I think every town has a road that they'd really like done that we don't have funding for yet. And what we do is we do try and prioritize, and I bring those lists to the committee and get input from the committee, and all the supervisors see that report. There are certain roads that we can let go another year and they're not going to get any worse. They're already in bad shape and they're not going to get any worse, where there's some roads that we want to maintain at a high level before they get to a point where they don't need just an overlay, but now they need a milling, a reconstruction, or a total resurfacing where we mill off and then put new pavement down. And then the worst case scenario, and where we spend a much higher percentage or much higher dollar amount per mile, is on the reconstruction. So we're trying to keep the roads out of that reconstruction cost. So it's not always worst first, where we're spending money. If we went worst first and went out and reconstructed all the bad roads, we'd only get a few miles done a year, and we need to be doing 25 miles a year is really our end goal. So we haven't been doing quite 25 miles a year, but we've been making some improvements.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Wild?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Jeff, a couple of questions. I don't see anything here to address the flooding issue that we have on the Hudson. Is that a totally separate account that we're funding for? Because we have some road work we need to do there. Is that true?
I don't believe there's any road work that's going to keep the ice and water off of those roads.
What about repair, though? Do we have
Right
any
now,
repairs associated with it?
our road is open. So we assessed our road, we didn't have any significant damage on our road, so our road is open again. I talked with the state resident engineer yesterday, and he's going to follow up with me. They know the state had a conference call at 11 o'clock yesterday morning where they were going to discuss the status of State Route 418 and all the other there's other areas in the region that are flooding. So I haven't heard back yet on their status, but I did hear from them that the 418 bridge doesn't appear to have moved or have any damage. So that's good news, because we were concerned that if there was enough pressure on that bridge where it shifted on the bearings, it could be a significant project and that bridge could be closed for some time. So last I talked to the resident engineer on their roads, they were anticipating opening the road soon, as long as the water recedes. So as far as our road goes, we didn't have significant damage. We had my highway manager reviewed it. I had engineering go through and review it before we reopened it, and nothing significant.
Okay, so my second question follow-up also about financials here. You mentioned you try to balance the percentage of roads from town to town to town. Would it be also prudent to take a look at the amount of traffic that these roads carry, the county roads carry, so that the high-density roads, in terms of traffic-wise, may move up the list a little bit sooner than just balancing from town to town? And I know that might be controversial to some of my other members on the committee and on the board, but there's two ways of looking at this. One distributing across the town, and one distributing with respect to density of traffic. Do you look at any of that today?
We give our best recommendations to extend the life of the roads with the money that we have. So, as I said, there's a life cycle, and I'd be happy to, maybe I should do that in the future in a Public Works meeting, kind of give a quick analysis on how we look at the road system. So, there's other arguments to be made too in priorities of roads, which are, the size of a detour. So, for some of the towns further north, certain county roads are the only way in and out. And if those roads are in poor condition or need to be closed, there are significant detours, where that's not so much the case in the southern part of the county. So, I'll be honest with you, I bring the recommendations based on the needs of the roads, and my best recommendation to extend the life of the roads, given the money that I have, and that's really the long-term game. I've gotten input from supervisors occasionally that say, hey, rather than doing this road, we'd really like you to look at this other road instead. And so I've gotten consensus from the committee that says, yeah, we want to see that road done, and that can happen certainly. That can happen anytime between now and April timeframe, when I start contracting for some of this work and we start initiating some of this work. So we do have time if you have specific recommendations on roads that should come off or roads that should come on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did that one we called the question on the first one?
Didn't get it. Oh, we have to vote, okay. We ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, on page 2 is a transfer request, and as I mentioned, in the budget process, we simply park the money into one code and then move it around once we establish a project. So this would actually fund those road projects that the committee just established.
Moved by Supervisor Loeb, seconded by Supervisor Dickinson. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, the next resolution request is to amend an existing contract. This is an existing contract we have with a consultant on a federal aid project. So what this resolution will do is fund the next phase of the project for construction, inspection, and construction support. And this is a painting project. It's a asbestos abatement and painting project. on two of our bridges, the Horicon Avenue over Scroon River and Glen Athol Road over Patterson Creek.
Okay, would someone, Supervisor Loeb, seconded by Supervisor Frazier, discussion?
I'm reading through online, what you posted. Is this just a matter of them going up and saying, good paint job, or what's actually involved?
Well, there's asbestos abatement and painting involved, so they've got to make sure that the contractor's meeting standards, and they will be overseeing the abatement process to make sure that the contractor is doing all the air monitoring and proper decontamination as well. And then the methodology of painting, and so that they will be inspecting the bridge in every phase, and when they scale the bridge to get the rough scale off, and then also when they start reapplying paint and primer, and make sure that yes, we're getting the number of layers that we're supposed to, and that's as simple as I can put it.
Thank you.
Okay, are we ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, the last item that needs committee action is a transfer request, and I want to discuss a little bit of the issue that we're having, and I have it listed under information, the Warrensburg Fuel Farm additional repairs. So, some of you may know the county DPW administers 8 fueling sites in the county. Those fueling sites are used by various municipal agencies, including schools and fire departments and EMS, other departments in the county. The towns use them, town highway departments. So we have somewhere around 39 agencies that use our fuel farms. One of the key ones is up in Warrensburg at what we call the Old Shop. It's where the DPW headquarters is. And that one was in need, and what we've been doing little by little is upgrading these tank systems to include new sumps. These are underground tanks I'm talking about. So they have sumps where all the piping connects to the tank, and they have piping that runs out to dispenser fuel islands, and then they have obviously the pumps and the dispenser on the fuel island. If you look out the back here, we did the tank here just a couple years ago, and that's what the new ones look like. We also replaced the fire suppression system and bring that up to current standards. So we were underway with the project in Warrensburg, and unfortunately we got to a point where when we removed the old sumps, we determined that there had been prior damage on the flange that connects the sumps to the tanks. We tried with the contractor involved and my own staff to repair them and get them to hold air. We have to air test them, we have to pressurize them, and they would not. So we've gotten to a point where we've got basically some additional scope of services that we're going to have to contract with. So my staff's moving quickly to get quotes and bring in other contractors who will actually cut fiberglass tanks, cut those flanges off, and basically fiberglass on new flanges. Long story short, or I guess a little shorter, is we need initial money in the contract. I'm proposing to transfer it out of our fuel maintenance code, which is a code that we use for routine repairs throughout the year. We think we can get the work done with what was originally put in the capital project, and because we got some good bids in, it came in a little bit lower than we anticipated, and with this additional $10,000. The reason I wanted to discuss it with the committee is if there's any significant repairs or work required on other tank systems this year, I may be back to committee saying, hey, I need to do this and I need money out of contingency or another transfer from some other location. So we're handling it with existing codes, but this is going to cut us short on that routine repair and maintenance code, and there could be impacts later in the year. I'm still recommending this transfer.
Supervisor Wild?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff, were these tanks leaking before?
No.
So there's an issue that happened during the, let's call it decommissioning and recommissioning.
No, I don't believe that. I believe the damage...
They were good prior, but now they're trying to fit all this stuff together and it doesn't fit. So I'm just wondering if there's any liability to our contractor to help cover some of this cost.
Yeah. I don't believe that and we had staff on site with the contractor, so There was nothing the contractor did in removing the old sumps that caused the damage. It was old damage that had been kind of fudged in enough so that it was holding air at the time, apparently. But it appears to be old damage, and these tanks were installed all in the mid to late 90s.
The metal seals? Is that what it is, the flanges? Metal to
No,
metal?
they're fiberglass tanks, so everything's coated with fiberglass, and the sumps are polyethylene. And there's a gasket that goes in between them, and then they're all bolted together with about 30
Sure.
bolts around them.
So the most effective way is to replace that whole flange
Yes.
setup?
They did try and patch it, in a similar method, but they couldn't get it to hold air. So I don't believe it was anything that the contractor did. We were there on site, throughout. So that's not the issue. This appears to be something that happened in the original install back in the 90s.
I think maybe it was like driven over and kind of, not crushed, but weakened, and then over the years, it just...
No, that wouldn't be the case at all. Not the way they're constructed. We think it was the original installation. So, the only thing, believe me, we looked at other ways to repair it. This is really our best option. These systems need to be upgraded at times. The tanks have a 30-year service life, but they're good tanks. The tanks are still good. The piping needs to be replaced on a regular basis, and the dispensers at the Warrensburg site, are original ones, replaced internals over time, but it's necessary work.
Mary?
Jeff,
Yes.
are you moving money into a capital project?
Yes.
Do you need to increase the amount of the capital project first?
Oh, I probably do need that too. Yep. Thank you.
That was actually fair.
I did the wrong form. My intent was to increase the capital project. Thank you.
We can vote on it.
Yes.
Well, we gotta get it on the floor in a second. We don't have a motion on the floor yet. Supervisor Loeb, seconded by Supervisor McGowan. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We want to do resolution to...
Do you also need a transfer?
I guess if we increase the capital project, do I need a transfer also? Because the increase the capital project form is going to say where's the money coming from. As long as the intent of the committee is to allow me to get the money out of this code, which is the DM code that I listed on the wrong form, this DM 5140422, the intent is to move $10,000 out of that code into the capital project H374, and in between now and finance, I'll do whatever forms we need to for finance.
Okay.
Question call.
Yeah, we're all good.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next, that's it for action items, and then the next item I had for discussion and review was a request by Americade to use the Westbrook parking lot and have exclusive use of that parking lot for Americade. In prior years, Americade has used that lot for one day when they have a concert at the festival space. And what's occurring this year in 2018 is they're moving a lot, basically their entire operation off of the Beach Road, or the beach parking lot, the DEC-owned parking lot down by the $1 Million Beach. That is all coming up to the other end of Beach Road, and they're going to be using the Beach Road parking lot that's at the base of the fort. They're going to be using the Festival Commons and the entire park, Charles R. Wood Park, and they're also using the parking lot, the adjacent parking lot that's owned by the county. So what their proposal was to use the space for 5 days at the normal fee of $2,000 per day. And that fee is based on the revenue that we would get on a normal weekend day from all of the parking meters that we have in that parking lot. So that's on a weekend day. We can expect that in a normal weekend day. So they're proposing to rent it for $2,000 a day for the full 5 days, but what they've asked reprieve for is the setup time. And we have an event the weekend before, and once that event is off-site, then we will want to go in and close the county parking lot so that they can start putting up fencing and other apparatus that they need for the event. They've asked that with the longer duration of the rental, that'll be $10,000 in revenue to the county, that we forgive them on the days that they're going to be closed and setting up. Those would be weekdays, so there'd be a smaller impact on the revenue. At the same time, they've never rented it for the full 5 days, so we're getting another $8,000 in revenue from them that normally doesn't occur. There was consensus in the Park O&M committee that this was a good idea, a good plan. But I reminded them that it's got to go to Public Works because that is a Public Works this committee oversees that parking lot.
Go ahead, Brad.
Do we have a figure of what the income would be on the slow days and the weekdays, and how many days do they plan on, taking to set up?
Some of the details are still being worked out, and Mayor Blaze is involved with the other event, and in part, they're still looking at how their setup is going to change, because this is a completely different package that they're bringing in because of the layout and because of they're using multiple sites. So some of that is still in flux. I anticipated that they'll need it for the full week prior, once the prior event comes out. I don't have those numbers. I guess I could come back to committee and let you know what our typical weekday is, but it varies so much because of weather.
Right.
I mean, you could have, if it's a rainy day, there's hardly anybody in the parking lot.
I mean, I wouldn't hold you to a figure, but, say $300 a day?
Maybe?
On an average, say? I mean...
I don't know. I don't know. I know the parking lot brings in about $100,000 a year.
A year.
For a complete season, from May to October, so I guess I could back calculate, if the weekends are sunny, we're bringing in $2,000 away on the weekends. You got 4, you got May, June, July, August, September, October, you got 6 weeks, you got 24 weekends at 4,000, so most of that's probably sunny weekends, I would say. Most of the revenue is sunny weekends. Personally, I recommend that the committee approve this. I think it's great for Americade, and it's great for the county and the additional revenue, and also the village is involved with the revenue we also get part of the revenue on the Beach Road parking lot.
So they want to go for $2,000 a day for 5 days. So
that is right. That is the rate, but they want to be able to set up in the days prior to the actual event.
So the way I look at it is, all right, so it's $10,000 for that 1 week, but it's actually 2 weeks, so $5,000 a week. So can we actually say that that parking lot does more than $5,000 a week per the weather?
Supervisor Wiles.
Mr. Chairman,
and then
I'm not sure.
Supervisor Dickinson.
And my question may be better answered by the supervisor to my right, but I'm curious, isn't Americade the one that we give significant money to already? So it's just another way for these guys to grab more support out of the county. We're already giving them, is it $250,000? 50, okay. It's still a significant...
You confused them with Glens Falls, we gave them 200.
We're not going to get into the merits of that.
Just to remind you that.
Supervisor Dickinson, unless you're...
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's, the point is that I'm not sure it makes sense. And if we owned that property, what would we expect if it was our money, right? And I'm wondering if there's maintenance, and if it does rain, is there a significant amount of money that we're going to have to expend to kind of repair damage and the like, or is that built into the contract and agreement we have with them? Maybe it's just more of a statement than an answer, but...
If you don't mind.
Supervisor Dickinson.
Really, it's totally insignificant to the fact that we have Americade here. They generate $43 million in the week that they're here. The few $100s you're talking about maybe losing depending on the weather, it's insignificant. what they need here, and I'm going to make a motion to accept this offer, is they have to make some commitments by the 1st of February in order to get this thing going. So I would like to make a motion based on Jeff's outline here that we accept this offer from them.
Okay, Supervisor Dickinson, do we have a second? Supervisor Molino, discussion. Supervisor Molino.
I also to add to Dennis, they are renting the festival space also for the week, which they never did before. So money that comes from there is also coming to the county. They're getting out of that other parking lot. This is better for us as a county, keeps it closer to town. People don't have to walk as far, and keep it all in one area. And like they say, I mean, it's $35 to $40 million that we garner from that week in Warren County with sales tax, hot tax, and all the businesses making money. To give up a few $1,000s, if we don't do it, you got chances of them not being successful or maybe even leaving. So, as long as I've been here for 33 years, that Americade brings money in every week, every day of that week. We got to help them this year. They are in financial problems, and the reason they're in financial problems is because a lot of the main factors, like all the motorcycle companies, motorcycle business is down in this country. Us regular people that we sit here, we're the old people that rode motorcycles. The younger generation, that's not their thing. So. So basically, we've had meetings with them, and this is something that came out of our meetings at O&M. Try it out this year, but I don't think you're going to lose money at all. And those parking lots.
Supervisor Loeb.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And I'm in full agreement and support of everything you gentlemen have said. I want us to consider the fact that we had the discussion about the fairgrounds in Warrensburg, and I think we're requiring in our contracts and our fees that whoever comes along, they're going to pay for that setup and breakdown time. And we have a lot of things that we get involved in the county, and I think it'd be advisable to be consistent. If we're requiring a small potato, if I can call that, compared to this giant, somehow we should word it so that everybody's paying for setup and breakdown time.
Supervisor Wild?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I guess the point that I was trying to make, I guess the bigger point is that I totally support Americade and what it does. It would be foolish to think otherwise. But I'd like to see a more consolidated budget line, so to speak, in terms of what we're giving to the Balloon Festival, what we're giving to the Civic Center, what we're giving to Americade, because there's a little bit here, a little bit there, right? And who knows, by the time I sit in a few more committees, it might be $200,000 we're giving them. It's probably not the case, but it just makes sense to kind of consolidate all this. That's all I'm asking for as we go forward, that this gets lumped on and recorded as what Americade gets from the county. What the Balloon Festival gets from the county.
I think you're talking two different animals. We give them the occupancy tax, we've divvied up, and we have a set amount. They're one of the Super 8. They get to set $50,000. This is totally different. They're looking to rent our county space, and this is what they all do when they come to all the events. They negotiate for whatever it is they have. They all have special needs.
And they're asking, I'm sorry.
Can I just chime in here? This is what they're doing, Mr. Weil, is they're moving their event from renting the DEC parking lot, they're moving it up to renting the county space. First time they've asked to move into this area, so they're asking for a little forgiveness. This year, we may be able to, I understand the consistency, it would be nice to have a fee and follow the fees, although we have done it in the past. Had we known this last year, then it would have gone to committee last year to do, but this just propped up, and it's really to lure them into renting more county space closer to the events they're going to hold on the festival site. I think it makes sense this time, and I also agree, we need to have a true accounting, which I think we can get in the future going forward.
Supervisor McGowan.
Yes, no, I agree with everything that's said, and like I said, do we want a nickel dime? It does bring a lot of money in. And if you think about it, $10,000 in revenue for 1 week, the only thing I probably would ask for, and they really don't know how long their setup is going to take because they're trying to finalize it. It might be they only need 4 days to set up instead of full 7. I might want to throw in there if they, they can have it after full 7 and they can have it right after the weekend, that Monday. But then doesn't it start on a Monday? Does it go Monday through
They have a different
Saturday?
official start time. Their start time, I think officially they don't start till like Tuesday or something.
June
like
4th
that.
through the 9th.
But I think they have to get set up.
June 4th to the 9th?
Is that a Tuesday?
June 4th is a Monday. Yeah, Monday to Saturday. So like I said, if so the full week, really, they could have it that Tuesday, which would give us, that following Monday. So we'd really just lose out on the 2nd and the 3rd. And a lot of people still start coming in for that weekend for the opening day. So I would tend to say that for the amount of money that they bring in on that, and I would say let's give it a shot.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, that's it for DPW. I do have attached the overtime report and fuel usage report for the end of last year.
Okay, let the committee review that for a second. Any questions?
You want a motion on that, Matt, or you want a motion to adjourn?
No, I'm just checking, I'm watching, I'm reading the committee. When people start looking upwards, then I think they're done reviewing. Supervisor Lowe.
Looking at this, and it's, for the size of your department and all that you do, those are pretty low numbers.
Great thing.
Okay, we all set? Motion to adjourn?
Well, just one other thing.
I waited all that time.
I just want to remind the DPW committee of the washouts in the town of Thurman, and that we may have to lend some help to the town of Thurman with the River Road, which is I know that's their road, but whatever we can do to help the town of Thurman out with this flooding until funding can be garnered, I think it's appropriate to help. You've had your share of it.
Before we adjourn, I also wanted to point out that I've had discussions with Jeff, and if any of the new supervisors would like to meet Jeff anywhere to, it's a big department, a lot of moving pieces.
I think, Jeff, we're going to try to do it as a group. I think it makes sense. We'll learn from each other as well as learning from you guys, so I think that makes sense for us. We'll let you know.
Okay, great.
Supervisor Loeb?
With regard to what Supervisor Garrity said, Jeff, I'm in full concurrence. Glens Falls is a little tiny spot, and we do a good job down in Glens Falls. We have a lot of population in Glens Falls and Queensbury, but every corner of this county is equally important. 4 legs on the table without that one leg, so any help that Thurman needs, I'm all to support.
Jeff?
So just so the committee knows that when the Thurman River Road was closed initially, and the first call we made was to their highway superintendent, Pat Wood, say, hey, you know, he needs something now. I anticipate that they're going to need some of our equipment, our heavy excavator, and maybe some trucking, and maybe some engineering to help them rebuild that. And the word we got back was, well, it's going to remain closed. I was concerned that they had something on the road that they were going to need to open the road up, you know, as quickly as possible. But they said it's going to remain closed, and then we'll follow up with Pat Wood and whatever they need.
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Supervisor Dickinson, Supervisor Merlino. Those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.